Hello, welcome to the Tennessee Informer. I'm your host, Dave Vance. We got a great guest tonight. We have with us tonight Charles Cooper, the Senate candidate for District 24 here in Tennessee. You won't want to miss what he has to say tonight. But first, if you have an announcement from a conservative organization that you want to have broadcast on this show, please send the information to tninformer.tv@gmail.com the Friday before the show. If you want our state to stand up to federal overreach, the best way to do that is support the nullification process bill sponsored by Senator Bowling and Representative Holsey that they intend to bring up this next session. Visit tncss.weebly.com/call to action, sign the petition, and follow the instructions on the link. Our state senators and reps need to know we want this legislation passed in January when they return. Now is also the time to get candidates for state office on the record as well. DC will never fix DC. Only the states can fix DC, and we're going to have to demand that they stand up and do that. They're not going to stand up and defend the state and the U.S. Constitution unless we make them. The Maury County Reagan Day event will be Friday, June 14th, 6 p.m. at Puckett's Restaurant in Columbia, Tennessee. Guests include Todd Starnes, Representative Andy Ogles, Representative Tim Burchett, and Tony Lauren. Tickets are $100 per. You can get them at murraytngop.com. The Stewart and Henry County chapter of the TFA, that's Tennessee Firearms Association, will meet this Thursday, 7 p.m. at the VFW in Paris, Tennessee, located at 2512 East Wood Street in Paris. The speaker will be West Tennessee TFA Director Richard Archie. If you've never heard Richard speak, you'll want to hear it. Want to know more about what's really going on in the world, in our country? Get some information that you won't get anywhere else? Tune in to Brian O'Shea. He's a career intelligence analyst, investigative reporter, and he's got a Substack, brianoshea.substack.com. And from that Substack, you can access the different platforms that he's on. He's got a lot of great information, former military analyst. And now to our guest. Charlie Cooper is running for state senate for the 24th District of Tennessee. He's a Christian, a husband, a father of three. Charlie is a U.S. Army veteran and a lifelong constitutional conservative. He's a native son of Benton County in Northwest Tennessee and has been married to his wife for 24 years, with both his sons proudly serving in the military. Charlie is a graduate of Camden Central High School, where he was Benton County FFA chapter vice president and lettered in football. After high school, he enlisted in the United States Army and served in the Quartermaster Corps. Charles holds degrees in ministry from VIU and Covenant Theological Seminary and has additionally completed numerous programs of study in areas such as leadership law, psychology, business management, criminal justice, political science, and counseling. Charlie currently works as the budget administrator and public relations director for the Benton County government and also serves as an ex officio member and secretary of the Benton County Budget Committee. He previously worked as a legislative assistant to former Representative Bruce Griffey in Tennessee House of Representatives. He was the past chair of the Benton County Republican Party, a former probation officer, corrections officer, police, fire, EMS dispatcher, a paralegal, and a volunteer firefighter. He's a member of Cow's Chapel. He's a member of the Northwest Tennessee Economic Development Council Board, American Legion Post 228, Camden's Elks Lodge 179, the Tennessee Firearms Association, and Gun Owners of America. Charlie believes strongly in liberty, freedom, and the United States Constitution. Charlie's slogan is, as your senator, he will strive to represent your interest, not the will of elite special interest groups, big money donors, or the leadership. Quite a resume you got there, Charlie.
Oh, thank you.
Well, I appreciate you being with us tonight. So we'll get right to it. I got a few questions for you. So what prompted you to run?
Well, I saw a need, basically. I've always tried to be a public servant and always had a servant's heart, I think. I like to help other people, and I like to, see people get the help that they need. I feel like in talking with a lot of people around the Northwest Tennessee, around the 24th District, that many of them felt like they weren't being represented properly, that their views and their will wasn't being represented in Nashville. So I decided I wanted to give them an alternative. I thought hard about it. I realized there's going to be a whole lot of struggle in it, a whole lot of sleepless nights and things of that nature, win or lose. But I realized that it's something I had to do. I prayed about it a lot and sought guidance from God on it, and I felt like it was something I'm supposed to do. So that pretty much sums it up. Like I said, I feel like people need representation. That's what our government's there for. That's what our elected servants are there for. And I want to be an elected servant and be able to serve the people of the 24th District and not other interests. As you said in my statement there, I don't have any interest in serving the big corporate interests, the big money interests that have permeated politics so much now. To me, it's just disgusting the way that politics is so perverted and people are bought and sold and principles are compromised with ease. So I want to try to be strong and get around that and not do those type of things that actually represent the will of the people the way it's supposed to be, and come home at the end of a term or two and whatever length of time and live under the laws that I helped to create, so just as the founding fathers intended. So.
Absolutely. So surely the time you were up there working for Bruce and surely you didn't see any corruption up there, or you didn't see that situations where elected officials kind of forgot about the people they represented and thought that they worked for the governor or they worked for majority leader or whatever the case might be.
Yeah, I think it happens definitely. There's some good people up there, and there's some people who follow a different path. But it's like I always like to describe it. I've seen where the bologna's made. It's like somebody told me years ago, if you ever work in a bologna factory or a hot dog factory, you'll never eat hot dogs or bologna again. But that's kind of how I look at Nashville to some degree, and to a larger extent, even Washington, D.C. But Nashville's got its own problems, and the bologna is made there, and I've kind of seen the way it's been made, and I want to go and try to make a difference. I realize one person can't make a huge difference, but if you get one person willing to call things out when they see things going wrong, when you got one person who will stand strong with their beliefs, that may start a cascade of other people. And I know there's a large number, a fair number of other good constitutional conservative candidates out there that are challenging incumbents, and together we can make a difference, I think. So,
absolutely. Well, as far as the Senate race goes in Tennessee, Senate races, it seems like all of the top rhinos, with the exception of McNally, have challengers. Yeah. And that's a good thing.
Right.
I mean, that is a good thing. I wish we had more of that, and hopefully at least a few of them are able to pull that off. Yeah. So what are some of the things you think you'll do different up there?
Like I've alluded to, I think that, I intend to put the people of the 24th District first, their will, and to do the right thing. It's like I've said a lot of times, I have to wake up each morning, look myself in the mirror and look myself in the face in the mirror and, feel good about what I did that day and feel good about what I'm doing. I also have to stand before God one day and be judged, even more importantly. So I want to cling to the things that I believe are right, the things that an elected servant should be doing, representing the will of the people. And I don't really feel like our current senator does that most of the time. I feel like he's swayed, like so many, swayed by big corporate interests, by special interest groups, and many of those groups are headquartered and do their business mostly outside of Tennessee. And I want to work for the people. I want to be a man of the people. And if I don't get the big corporate paychecks, I don't want them anyway. So as far as I'm concerned, there's a whole list of people who contribute to my opponent's campaign and some of the other campaigns that I've seen up there from some of the folks that, if they wrote me a check and sent me a check, I'd tear it up or return it to them. I wouldn't want to represent or even, give an appearance of impropriety there, that I would be supporting somebody like Pfizer or, the big corporations, big pharma, things like that. They can keep their money, and I'll try to keep my integrity.
So you're not going to be a chamber asset?
No, sir. No, sir.
Okay. We have a lot of that. I think a lot of people get up there and they forget that, no, you don't work for the Chamber of Commerce. You don't work for the NFIB. Right. You don't exist to make Bill Lee happy. And you don't exist, if you're in the Senate, you your whole focus should not be keeping Randy McNally happy.
Right.
And obviously the leadership uses, tactics to try to keep people, have people, bend to their will.
Yeah.
And so we definitely need people up there that will say no.
Right.
And push back on these things.
And I believe, when you're right, you're right, and when you're wrong, and it doesn't matter what title you hold, So that's, if the leadership, if Governor Lee is right on something, I back him 100%, just like we should. It's to me, it's not about who gets the credit or anything else, or opposing somebody just because you don't like some of the other things they've done.
Right.
If it's right for the people of the 24th District and the people of Tennessee, then I'm all for it. If it's not, I'll be the first to tell them that it's not a good idea, in my opinion. So, I believe in being honest with them and, not trying to just curry favor with the leadership. To me, that's not what you're there for, especially with separation of powers. Governor Lee, nothing against Governor Lee, but, he's not always right, obviously. And, I'm prepared to tell him he's not and vote against him and oppose him on things if the need be. So,
well, you mentioned the will of, in your district. Of course, that's kind of hard to figure. But, all elected officials, you take that oath to the Constitution. And matter of fact, state officials, they take that oath to both the state and the U.S. Constitution. Right. So that's, in my mind, that's the first thing, okay? Absolutely. Whatever the issue is it constitutional in accordance with those two documents? And if it is, then it's, then it's okay, what does the district want? As long as it doesn't violate. That's just my thought on it. And you're a constitutional conservative, so I would hope you would agree with that.
I agree, absolutely.
So let's go ahead and you've got several issues listed on your website. Let's just go ahead and put those up, and we'll just go down the line and let you kind of fill the blanks in a little bit. It's, okay, I don't know so the first one is pro-life.
Absolutely.
And of course, we're a strong pro-life state, but let's hear what you have to say on that.
Well, it's like I've told people recently that, I can't remember ever since I was old enough to know that there was a such thing as abortion. I've been pro-life, before I even knew what pro-life meant. To me, it's a natural reaction, and I can't imagine that anybody would feel differently, and I don't understand anybody who feels differently. I'm unapologetically pro-life. I'm, 100%. I don't believe in all the elective procedures with abortion. I don't believe in any kind of stipulations when it comes to elective procedures. If it's an elective procedure, that's a human life, and I don't waver on that. I believe life begins at conception, without a doubt, and that baby is a human life. It's not just a clump of cells. If we want to say it's a clump of cells, we are too, but that's a human life, regardless if the baby is going to be born with, or they say the baby's going to be born with problems, or the baby's a product of, an unfortunate circumstance. Those are, of course, things that don't happen very often, but when they do, that baby's still a human life and deserves a chance at life. So I'm unwavering on pro-life issues. I'm in favor of preserving human life at all, at all hazards. So that's why I'm pro-life. I believe that it begins at conception, and God gave that life, and no one else can take it away.
Well, can't argue with that. The next one on the list, and America First.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's one of my favorite slogans, America First. I'm proud. I've served in the military. I have children serving in the military. My dad served in the military. I've got a lot of ancestry that served in the military and defended this country, and I'm proud to be an American. I know sometimes it's not as popular to say now, but I'm just as proud as I ever was, even more so to be an American. I know our country has its problems. Obviously, we've got conflicts and things going on, but we're still the greatest country in the world, and I believe in American exceptionalism. I believe Americans, an American way of doing things, the ideals of America that we were founded upon are exceptional, and they work around the world when implemented. We're the beacon on the hill, I guess you could say, the light on the hill of all the countries, and America's best. I think we should be first. We should put our country first, like President Trump was doing. I felt like he did a great job with America First. That he's a leader who cares about his country, and cared about his country as president, and will again shortly be president and care about our country. But America needs to be first. China's leaders, they believe in China first, and there's nothing wrong with that, they say. all these other countries, they believe in their country first. I don't think there's anything wrong with believing in America first. We should put our country first while respecting others, respecting other nations, respecting other people, and, doing what we can for good in the world. But at the same time, America first. We've got enough problems here that we need to deal with without sending money to a lot of these other countries and doing things for them.
So how would you impact that, though, as a state senator?
Well, I'd have to see what kind of things come up and what kind of legislations we could draft, but I would say, there'd be some things probably under the 10th Amendment that might come up that would control federal issues, but I would say on the state level, we can probably do some things as far as bringing business to Tennessee, bringing even some of these.
But not foreign businesses.
No, not necessarily. No.
Okay.
We want jobs, and we want good jobs, and I think that can strengthen America. You strengthen it a block at a time. You can. Tennessee's one of the blocks in the country, and one of the building blocks. And I think if we strengthen Tennessee, we're strengthening the nation as a whole, and we can do what we can at the state level to do that.
Okay. And the next issue, Second Amendment, which, here's the thing. I know you followed this being a TFA member. Mm-hmm. 2 years ago, we had the Bruin decision, or the Bruin opinion at Supreme Court, that basically said that any restriction on the ability to keep and bear arms that was not in effect at 1791 is not valid now. Mm-hmm. And here, 2 years later, with our Republican supermajority, which we've had for over 10 years, we still just can't seem to get there. Mm-hmm. And so let me hear what if you are a state senator from 24th District, mm-hmm. what are the things you're going to push for in terms of strengthening our Second Amendment, or at state level, it falls under Section 26 of our Declaration of Rights?
Right. Well, I believe, first of all, that everyone has a right to self-defense. If you're a law-abiding citizen, if you're somebody who's not a criminal, you certainly have a right, and you should be able to carry long guns, and that's one piece of legislation that I would sponsor or support. The fact that, our laws don't allow for the carry of long guns in public, and I think that's wrong. If you have no ill intent, you shouldn't be kept from doing that.
And most of the states around us allow that. I think we're one of 4 states in the country, and I think one is
California, New York.
New York, and there's Florida.
Yeah. Surprisingly, Florida's on the list, but I just think that's wrong, and I think I don't believe we have true constitutional carry. That would be something I'd like to push. It's something that the governor and others have billed as constitutional carry. It's not. My understanding is it provides a defense for you if you happen to get arrested with a firearm, and then you got to defend yourself, which, in liberal enclaves like we know exist around the state, that could land you in jail.
Well, you have to have the same. You have to almost meet the same standard as if you had enhanced carry, but since you don't have the enhanced carry permit, you can't take it as many places. Right. And it's ridiculous.
I believe the Second Amendment should be your carry permit. That's all you should have. If you meet the criteria and you fall under the Second Amendment, you should be able to use that as your carry permit, because as we well know, as it's been said many times, criminals don't obey laws. So the more laws you have, if you tell a criminal, hey, you can't carry with the intent to go armed, they're, of course.
Yeah, that's working out so well in Memphis, Knoxville, Nashville. They really follow that well.
Yeah, I'm curious to know when you would carry and not be intending to go armed. That's a good question, but that's another bit of language that I would like to see gone. I think the Second Amendment is your carry permit, should be your carry permit, and nobody should be able to harass you over carrying a firearm, because if you're a law-abiding citizen and you're not a criminal who's probably carrying it illegally anyway,
right,
not supposed to have it. If you're in that position, you're probably carrying it to defend yourself, defend your family. And as far as the Second Amendment goes, like I made a point in Henry County the other day when I spoke, that a lot of people miss the point on the Second Amendment, that it's for protecting yourself, protecting your home against burglars, against to go hunting for hunting rights, and those things are extremely important. They're definitely important, but the Second Amendment, as we well know, is written at a time when we had just thrown off the chains of the British Empire, and we were fighting the British. So it's I think it was fresh in the founding fathers' minds when they enacted it that
For a future tyrannical government, basically.
Tyrannical government,
Yeah.
that that's something that I think due to the negativeness of human nature that happens. People get power hungry, people take over things, and you end up having a government that wants to control all aspects of your life and take away your freedoms. And at that point, that's what the Second Amendment's really for.
Yeah.
A lot of people lose sight of that, but that's the ultimate use of it, to defend yourself against a tyrannical government if necessary.
Yeah, well, it's really frustrating too, because we definitely have a tyrannical government, and our borders are wide open. This is a Fed-led invasion. We're all at risk, and yet here in Tennessee, we cannot fully enjoy our Second Amendment rights because our state legislature and our governor won't allow it.
Right.
So that's and I know that in the last session or two, that Senator Stevens has carried some pro-gun legislation. Of course, you and I know that on some of that, it's carried this year. For instance, the legislation that was going to basically do away with the legislature's ability, as it's stated in the current state constitution, to regulate the wearing of arms, and
Right.
there was going to be a constitutional amendment proposed to do away with that. And of course, the Secretary of State has prevented that from being on the ballot because he said, "Oh, we've already got enough on the ballot." Now, you and I both know that didn't just pop in the
Right.
Secretary of State's head. But
Right.
anyway, all the same, if you remember, we had to stay on the current Senator Stevens, to get hot with that bill. It was already going through the House. It's an election year. Anybody who's followed things up there know that during an election year, they like to get out of there early so they can go campaign.
Absolutely.
And yes, he carried it, he sponsored it, but he definitely had to kick him to get it going.
Right.
So
Right.
hopefully we wouldn't have to kick you to get it going.
I don't think so.
Okay. The next topic: maximum personal liberty and freedom. You guys, apologize again. I'm still recovering from a torn retina, so I'm having a little help from the sound man. So, maximum liberty. Let's talk.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Correction, the producer.
You downgraded him, yeah. All of the above. Yeah, I'm all about liberty. I'm all about freedom. I believe in individual rights. I believe in keeping the government out of your business. That's one of my overarching principles that I base, a lot of my decisions on, and the way I think on. Is I don't think the government has a right to intrude upon your business as long as you're minding your own, you're not harming somebody else. So I believe in maximum freedom. If we can look at legislation, if we can look at something that's coming down the pipe and accomplish a good goal with the maximum amount of freedom, I think that's what we should do. I don't think we should take the authoritarian, the statist route and empower the government to do more and expand the government. I believe strongly in the idea that a government that's big enough to do everything for you can do anything to you. So, so I want to keep the government small and lean, or not keep them small and lean, make them small and lean, because they're way too big right now. I'd like to see a smaller, leaner, more efficient government that doesn't have the time or ability to intrude upon your rights. I think the more you fund some agencies and the more you give them power, the more they use that power and that funding to trample on the rights of the citizens. So I'm healthily skeptical of the government, I guess you could say. I believe in keeping them out of your business. I think that if they're given any power or too much leeway, if there's not enough oversight of them, they're going to run astray. I think it's human nature, unfortunately, with some people, and that's what I mean by that. I want the government out of your business. I want low taxes, which come along with that. A smaller, leaner, more efficient government should result in lower taxes. And red tape, bureaucracy. I think there's way too much of that. And there's a whole lot of shell games going on and things like that I'd like to see ended. So anything that supports freedom, that supports individual rights and the right to be left alone, and the right to live your life and the right to pursue happiness. That's where I am. That's where I am in my support.
That means that we probably in our state shouldn't pass or carry, 1,500 bills every year, something like that, some crazy number of bills every year that get filed. There's no way that you're passing even a third of that amount of legislation and increasing freedom.
Right.
No way. I mean, we do way too much every year, and there's no way they can keep up with all of it. Right. I'd love to see some sort of limits on what they can run. I mean, they've got so many things on the that's already part of our law.
Right.
So I don't think it's more laws we need. I think it's fewer laws we need, and in some cases we need to enforce the ones we have.
Right.
That's a big problem.
I mean, you've got so many laws, as everybody knows, state level and federal level, that, and then you've got administrative codes, administrative law, and things of that nature. That there's so much there, nobody could possibly even begin to scratch the surface of one small percentage of knowing what any of it says. So to me, that's a problem. I know there's some specialty areas that need to be addressed in the law and things of that nature that you maybe have to pass some laws for, but I think we could streamline it. I think we could cut it way down and make it lean and make it where, most people could understand, whether they're breaking the law or not, or how to follow the law.
Right.
I think the higher up in government you go in dealing with them, the more nightmarish it becomes because of just the way they conduct themselves, the way it seems like in a lot of cases that, they tend to, take something that should make sense and do the exact opposite, so that sometimes when I'm dealing with the government, it's, you got to figure out what makes sense and then figure that they want you to do the opposite. It's, that goes into the laws and the amount of laws we have and everything and the regulations that, no one, even a lot of times the government really understands what they've got and what they've passed. So I think that could be streamlined and cut down quite a bit.
Talking about streamlining and cutting, we hear all the time about how fiscally responsible our state is.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we balance our budget every year. Well, it is a constitutional requirement. Right. And that's one of the constitutional requirements that our state does actually follow. They ignore a lot of what's in the Declaration of Rights in the front of our Constitution. We'll talk about that a little more later. Right. But they do adhere to that. And that's great, okay? But, here's the thing. We get something like 38% of our funding every year from the federal government. Mm-hmm. That's a lot of dependency on a government that we know is insane and irresponsible. Mm-hmm. And that we know that this government is like the Titanic and it's going to hit that iceberg. Mm-hmm. Yet we seem to stay tethered to it. And so to me, that seems very irresponsible. It seems like that's way too much dependence on the federal government. Yeah. I understand we have good ratings, we have low debt, so I'm not saying they haven't done anything good, but we increase every year going back, since we've had the supermajority, going back to the Haslam days, that bill and the current bill in the governor's office, our spending has increased every year. I think the current senator is on the budget committee.
I believe he is.
So any thoughts about our state budget?
Again, it's too big. I know everybody wants their little share to bring back to their district, and I understand that. But it just, like you said, it grows every year, and it's already long ago too big, and it's growing every year is just unsustainable. Same way with the federal government, even worse. But it's just an unsustainable growth. Eventually something has to give, and it's not going to be pretty when it does. But a lot of those mandates and something I've been studying up on, and I deal with a little bit to an extent in my job with the county government is, the state sometimes is like the federal government. They like to send mandates and they start a program and give you some funding, and then they pull the funding and say, okay, now it's yours. So that puts burdens on the local governments to have to come up with that money, and which inevitably is probably going to result in property tax raises and things of that nature. So. I think they need to show a lot of physical restraint. It's just it's not time to spend everything you have. It's not time to just go on a shopping spree and then dole out money. And and of course, I know they hand out a lot of the money, at election
to the
time.
Titan Sports Stadium.
Yeah, yeah. Another problem, I'm a sports fan. I love football just like anybody else. I'm not huge on the NFL anymore, obviously, for obvious reasons, but I love college football, and I love to watch a good football game just as much as anyone else. But I don't think that's a place for the public to, public funds to go. You got multi-billion-dollar team owners and things like that can foot that bill, and they're making plenty off of it. So, I was outraged at that. I was actually in Nashville working for Representative Griffey when they passed that, and I thought it was a terrible idea. Just on principle, to give that kind of money to a sports stadium. And I understand the argument that it brings jobs and it brings some revenue and things like that. But at the same time, it's just that's not the function of the government either. So, that's something that I would stand firm on, is that the government should stay within its proper functions, and not be getting into the sports business and the stadium financing business. Or
Right.
funding business, I guess I should say.
Yeah.
So that's another.
And we gave a good
boondoggle.
chunk to Ford as well.
Yeah, yeah, and that's still up in the air. I guess they're going to be bringing in jobs and everything. We'll see how it works, but who knows how that'll turn out. But yeah, I've got concerns about that too. Although it'll be a good, hopefully a good economic boom for the area. But still, at the same time, there's no guarantees, and there's no guarantee that you're going to hire Tennesseans either. So. Those
Yeah.
thousands of jobs may go to people that they bring in from other places, but either way, it's outside the government's
Scope. Yeah.
I think to get involved too much in those kind of things. I
Absolutely.
think government should have a very limited scope, and that's that's not within the limits. So
Okay. And the next topic. Okay, restrain government overreach and fully uphold the 10th Amendment.
yeah, I think that's something I saw in Nashville when I was there quite a bit, and have seen since. That there seem to be quite a few people in the state legislature that they're very concerned about going against the federal government in any way. If there's legislation up, that's all you hear is it's so that's.
We'll lose federal dollars.
We'll get sued by the federal. We'll have to. This thing, and that's not an excuse to me. Right, like I said earlier, right is right and wrong is wrong. And if the federal government's wrong, which they are a lot of the times, and they do something that we need to stand up against, then we need to not be afraid of the federal government. We need to stand up and go to court if necessary and fight it out with them in court. We've got to stand up for what's right, what's constitutional, and the 10th Amendment's pretty clear. They outline certain things that the federal government has control of, and other than that, it's relegated to the states or the people. So, that's my take on that, we need to stand up and not be afraid of the federal government. We have powers too. The state of Tennessee has powers, and a lot of times we can exercise those powers with more common sense, I think, than the federal government does. Okay. And the rest of it was government overreach.
Yeah, but look, before we get to that, and of course that's all part of it, but I do want to say this. Now, in 2021, during the whole COVID scam, and I'll give our state legislature kudos on this. They did pass SJR 9005, and this is a joint resolution between the House and the Senate. The House sponsor was Sexton, the Senate sponsor was McNally. Every senator, including Stevens, signed this legislation basically telling the federal government, okay, in terms of their attempted overreach on certain things to do with COVID and vaccinations and whatnot, that hey, we retained we retained all the sovereignty that we didn't delegate in the Constitution, okay, and I'm paraphrasing here, and they cited different court cases, so on and so forth, and they said, and I agree with this 100%, that they have the right and the responsibility to nullify unconstitutional federal overreach. And oh, by the way, we are not limited to just court action, which I see as going groveling to the federal government, okay? And everybody signed it. The governor didn't, okay, but all the legislatures, all the Republican ones anyway. I think there may have been one or two in the House that weren't on there for some reason, but Stevens signed it. So then in 2023, Senator Bowling brings forth a bill, along with the House sponsor of the bill was Bud Halsey, and it was essentially a nullification process bill. And it went to, I don't know if this was a state and local government. I think it was the State and Local Government Committee, which Senator Stevens is on. And the bill couldn't get a second. Now, this year, that bill, pretty much the same bill, comes back, different numbers, and it gets sent to summer study. And Stevens voted to send it to summer study. So they went from saying we have this right and this responsibility, oh, by the way, because we took an oath. We took an oath and we have the responsibility, to not even giving a second and hearing a bill. And then this year, sending it to summer. So are you more, is your mind more made up on the 10th in the issue of nullification than apparently our current senators is?
Oh, yeah.
Because he can't seem to make up his mind.
And actually, I was at an event, I attended an event and got to speak there on Saturday in Henry County. And the question was posed from the audience to Senator Stevens when he got up to speak about nullification. And I believe that bill in particular was brought up as to sending it to summer study. And I believe it was the one about the one that didn't get a second also. And when asked about nullification, Senator Stevens, and I don't want to misquote him, but pretty much what he said was it's unconstitutional that it was tried, I think he said in the 1830s or 1820s, and that nullification is unconstitutional. And I'm sure there'll be people there that will back up my version of that because they heard him say it. But he said nullification is unconstitutional.
So I guess I need to ask him, was it unconstitutional in 2021 when you signed the resolution? I understand it's a resolution. I got it. Resolution doesn't have teeth per se.
Right.
But, they passed it for a purpose.
Right.
And he was a lawyer then too. Okay. He didn't just become a lawyer since that time.
Yeah.
It sounds to me like he really doesn't know what he believes.
Yeah.
And so apparently, I guess somebody higher up wanted that and he went along with it, but he doesn't believe in it. Yeah. That's what I'm taking. Okay, all right. I hope you're more. I hope your mind is more made up on that issue than his.
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay.
I think it's nullification. I think it was Thomas Jefferson that said it's a rightful remedy. Yeah.
Well, if you read the Federalist Papers, you'll get a lot. Then you have the Kentucky and Virginia resolution. Here's the bottom line: is without nullification, everything that the state supposedly retains. Then you're saying we've got to go groveling to the federal government for those powers that we supposedly retained. Yeah. Okay, it makes a good chunk of the Constitution meaningless, in my opinion. Yeah. So anyway,
I agree, and I'm not for groveling, so it's that's especially to the federal government. So that's definitely right up my alley. I'm all in on that one.
Well, while we're talking overreach, let's talk about a little state overreach. During the COVID thing, you had Governor Lee, who signed these emergency orders. Basically, I don't think he so much directly shut things down, although he did classify certain occupations as non-essential. All right, and I don't know, there's nowhere in our state constitution that gives him the authority, or anybody in government, the authority to designate a legal occupation as non-essential. All right. But he did that. And of course, he kept renewing the emergency order, and that was all about continuing to get federal dollars. That's exactly what that was about. And so a lot of people were hurt by that whole thing of your occupation is non-essential. You talk about government overreach.
Right.
That's DC style overreach that happened here in Tennessee during this. And so there was legislation this year sponsored by Senator Pody that would have made it clear that neither the governor or any state agency has the right to designate anybody's lawful occupation as non-essential, even in an emergency. And having, emergency, remember too, in our Declaration of Rights that are in front of that's Article 1 of our Tennessee Constitution. Right. It's essentially our Bill of Rights plus, okay? It lists it there, and it says that under no circumstances can they be violated. There's other parts in the Constitution, I think in Article Section 11, or see, Article 11, Section 16, or maybe I have that backwards, where it reemphasizes that the Declaration of Rights in the front of this Constitution cannot be violated under any pretense whatever. Okay. Right. Yet here we have the governor writing these emergency orders and telling people that, you know, your job's not essential. So I emailed him about that, and I asked him why he didn't support that. He said, well, I don't agree with designating jobs as not essential, but we passed other legislation that I felt like reined in, limited the time the governor could have an emergency order in effect. So I went and looked it up, and so it goes from 60 days to 45 days. I don't know too many people that could not work for 45 days. Yeah. Certainly in this district. I mean, we've got some very well-off people in this district, got a lot of middle class in this district. We got a lot of people below middle class, but I don't know any of them. Yeah. 45 days I can just do without a paycheck.
Yeah. I don't know too many people like that either. It's, maybe the people who are in that mindset. Maybe they know more people than I do that can go without a paycheck for 45 days. But
still wouldn't make it the government's place to do that.
No, not at all. Not at all. Yeah, and I think reducing it from, what did you say, 60 days to 45. I think that's
his emergency orders. So they'll review him. They'll review him in 45 days instead of 60 days.
So you can have your rights taken away for 45 days, and
we're only going to violate your Declaration of Rights for 45 days at a time instead of 60 days at a time.
And we'll re-up for another 45.
Yeah. Well, then we'll review it, and then the governor will say, hey, I really want this. Yeah. All right, okay, we'll do it. Yeah, exactly. We know how that works out. Yeah. Anything else you want to talk about on overreach? Whether how we react to federal overreach or state issues of overreach?
Yeah, my opponent, let's see, my understanding was he helped to kill a bill that would have allowed, would have kind of reined in the Biden Justice Department, the FBI.
You're talking about the FBI bill?
Yeah, the FBI bill. Let's talk about that one. Yeah.
So, you know what? I wrote him about that one as well, because and if you didn't hear about the bill, I don't recall the bill number, okay? Mm-hmm. I know in the House it was carried by Mark Warner. I know in the Senate it was carried by Joey Hensley. Yeah. And I know Steve Friend, who was the FBI whistleblower, who was trying to get this bill passed. We actually had him on the show. Mm-hmm. And the bill was filed as a caption bill. And for those of you who don't know, caption bill, it just will refer basically to the codes that it's going to affect and
opens up
really doesn't tell you a whole lot else, okay? So normally what will happen is after it's filed, there will be an amendment that will make the bill, okay? Mm-hmm. Anyway, so the first amendment that made the bill, and this was in the House, but they're working together. Representative Warner and Senator Hensley are working together. Mm-hmm. And the amendment was more restrictive. And basically what it said was, because we've had so many problems with federal agents coming into Tennessee and other places. Mm-hmm. You had the situation there with, I think the guy's name was Paul Vaughn, a pro-life activist, mm-hmm. and him and his family woke up one morning at gunpoint because they had protested at an abortion center. And this bill would have basically said, okay, sheriffs would be prohibited from allowing their deputies to be part of anti-terror task force. Because remember, anti-terror, according to the FBI now, they consider us the terrorist. Yeah. Okay, yeah. They consider us the threat. And so that's kind of who they're going after. And so this was to hopefully prevent some of that. Mm-hmm. And they didn't, basically there was a lot of pushback on that. So the final amendment on that was just, okay, look, the sheriffs can allow them to be part of the task force. Mm-hmm. However, the sheriff has to be involved all the way. That bill couldn't get a second in the committee, in the Senate. Yeah. In the Senate, could not get a second in the committee. Yeah. So I also, and this was the same email that I asked him about the non-essential issue. I asked him why, I told him I couldn't believe they couldn't even at least bring up the bill and talk about it. I get this garbage response, total garbage response. Well, I go to church with this Secret Service agent. He's a fine Christian man. And, I felt like this this legislation was an insult to him and all the other fine federal agents out there. I know we got some bad apples at the top, but at the user level, our county and state guys get along with him well. And I really thought this was, we didn't need it, or he didn't like it. He said, "Oh, I backed the blue." Yeah, he said, "I backed the blue."
Yeah.
Didn't have anything to do with Secret Service.
Yeah.
And apparently no concern, either no knowledge or no concern about federal agents coming into Tennessee and doing what they did to Mr. Vaughn. And there's been other issues. There's been other situations. We still don't know what that one guy was killed about in Hendersonville. We don't know why he was killed.
Yeah.
And not even a motion in a second.
Yeah.
Now, here's what I believe. When it doesn't get a motion in a second, personally, I believe that Randy McNally didn't want that bill.
Yeah.
I can't prove that. That's my belief.
I was going to say that's my belief, that it comes down from above somewhere. Somebody with big feet, as we say, don't want it to pass.
Right.
And I know I've experienced that a few times in working with Representative Griffey. He's had a couple bills that didn't receive a second. And you can see you can trace the footsteps. But yeah, I think if you back the blue, which I do, absolutely.
Right. Obviously, you do.
You should want to pass a bill that would show enough respect to your sheriff to, keep him notified and let him have part of the say in the use of his deputies. I mean, to me, that's back in the blue. More than protecting Secret Service agent that's not even involved in the bill.
Right.
Doesn't even mention the Secret Service, but. Yeah, I think that's the way you back the blue. You respect your local sheriffs, your local law enforcement, and give them,
and the citizens. They have rights.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's bad apples and good apples in every group. But I've worked with a lot of law enforcement folks, and there's the vast majority of them are just great people who are doing a tough job for very little money. So so I respect that. But to me, that's how you show respect to your sheriff, to your local law enforcement, is you let them in on it if you're going to take their deputies and use them. But
and you've worked in law enforcement.
Yeah.
So anyway, that's one of the things that was really concerning. Next topic, unless you have anything else that you want to talk about in reference to overreach.
No, I'm good.
Smaller government, less taxes.
Okay. I touched on that a little bit, I think, in one of the other topics. I think maybe in the overreach, but I think I went over that quite a bit about lean government. I think that government should be lean, efficient, and small as possible to get the job done and stay within their bounds, but not so big that they intrude upon people's lives and disrupt your life and get in your business too much. Like I said, in turn, that would I think lower the taxes. Taxes are high now in large part because the government's so big and so wasteful, and uses your tax dollars sometimes for God knows what, usually to take away your liberties, unfortunately, in some cases. So I think that covers that. I think I kind of covered that topic a little earlier. But
right. Now, one of the things that was floated early on this year before session started, or right at the beginning, was not taking any more federal dollars for K through 12 education. Mm-hmm. And that went away. I did see, you can go to, I think it's the Sycamore Institute, and they lay out all the good, bad, and ugly of it. Mm-hmm. And if I remember correctly, and I'm sure somebody will correct me if I'm wrong, they said it was feasible. Personally, I think we can't afford not to do it. Mm-hmm. But in keeping with what I was talking about earlier about cutting our reliance on the federal government, is education a place you would agree that should be done? Or
I think so, yeah. I mean, I think we need to fund our schools. We need to, educate our children. We need to, do a lot of reform in our schools and then in the way things are done to some extent. But, as far as the federal government purse strings, I'm all for cutting those any place we can, because we know the strings come with, money comes with strings when it comes from the government, especially the federal government.
Ropes and chains.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so that's a concern for me. As long as you're taking money from the federal government, you have to abide by their rules pretty much. So that's something I would look at cutting anywhere we can. Purse strings of the federal government coming into any sector of our, of our state. So anywhere I could see that reduced or cut out, I would be all for it.
And I think one of the reasons that idea went away is because, and this, like I say, this is just my speculation, because I know that from day one, Governor Lee's wanted the vouchers, okay? And of course, they didn't get the vouchers passed this year, but we already know they're coming back next year. I'm just curious, I've heard that some of these candidates, some of the senatorial candidates have gotten a call to see where they stand on the vouchers.
Yeah.
I don't know if the governor's called you yet or not, but I understand he's called some people to ask where they stand on vouchers.
He hasn't, but I know my opponent, Senator Stevens, was a co-sponsor on the voucher bill. He signed on kind of toward the end, and apparently he's for them. I'm not. I think they're a bad idea just all the way around. I can't even pontificate or list the number of bad ideas, the bad things that can come in the voucher system. I know of course, we're constitutionally required to fund education, is my understanding. So a lot of that, if the vouchers started taking money out of the public school system, that would fall back on the counties. Again, we'd be faced with increased local taxes to make up that difference. And just the idea that, from all sides, it's just a bad idea. It's taking money out of the public school system, which, it needs some work, but we need to fund public schools and, not open it up for abuse, which I think it would. It would open it up, the voucher system would open it up for abuse. You might have a fly-by-night school that comes in, collects money, and then kicks the kid out and closes their doors, and they're back in the public school system, and the funding's gone, Or from the other perspective, I'm all for Christian schools. I'm all for, private schools and homeschoolers, 1,000%. I think you should have a right to homeschool your children and send them to a Christian school if you like, or whatever your conscience has you doing. But from that standpoint too, there's like we said earlier, just a minute ago, that government money comes with strings. Right. So if you allow them to, fund your homeschool program at your house, your Christian school, pretty soon they're going to be coming in and say, we don't.
You got to do this. You got to do that. You can't say this. You can't say that.
You're taking our money. You can't. You can't quote that Bible verse. You can't. You can't teach that. You got to teach this. So it's just like I said, numerous problems with vouchers. And at one time, several years ago, I thought vouchers would be a good idea because I'm for freedom, and you thinking it's somebody being able to take their tax money and go and take it where they choose, but the negatives far outweigh the positives on it, and I've learned that over time and studying it, and I'm definitely not in favor of vouchers. So,
yeah.
So if Governor Lee were to call me, I'm going to have to break the news to him.
Okay. There was, that's another thing. We have all this garbage in our schools,
yeah.
All the pornography, obscenity, and all the CRT, and we can't seem to get it out. Mm-hmm. And so we can't, basically with the vouchers, it's what they our elected officials seem to be telling us, that the ones that support it, hey, the public school, the state school that we're already constitutionally required to fund, they are substandard. Oh, and by the way, we can't really stop. We pass these laws, but then we don't enforce these laws, or we don't give them any teeth. Right. So all that garbage is still being pushed on your kids. And now we want to expand the ability to do that. Because if you can't take care of it in the schools that you control directly,
we can't take care of it. Definitely can't take care of it out there.
It just seems to me like it's okay. Let's just let us fail. Let's fail bigger.
Yeah.
Let's fail bigger. Let's let the government be involved with this, and they'll use the fact that they fund you to tell you what to do or what you can't do. Yeah, and it seems to me that we'd much be better off if getting the feds out of it and actually enforcing the laws that we passed on
Absolutely.
The whole, all the woke garbage.
Absolutely.
That's allowed in
you
the
got
schools.
You got a lot of woke school systems that thankfully those are mostly in the bigger cities and not in our area. We've got a lot of great teachers, a lot of great administrators in our area. So I think our public schools were really blessed, and in the rural areas, I think are generally blessed. But there's some really concerning things going on in a lot of the schools. And,
I would say look at the curriculum in all of them, because the state approves all of them.
Yeah.
So
I think on a local level, though, I mean the teachers and administrators at the local level in the rural areas, I think do a great job. But of course, they have to do what the state tells them, and they have to to some degree teach what the state tells them, and they provide the curriculum, like you said. But I think their hearts are in the right place. But I think there's a lot of wokeness in some of the school districts that thankfully, we don't have in the teachers and in the administration anyway, in our area. So we're blessed in that respect. But there's a lot of things in the curriculum and things that need to come out. It's just like in school libraries and things with the pornographic books and things like that. And they characterize it as you're a book burner, you're wanting to ban books, but nobody wants to ban books because obviously they've got copies of them, so they're not banned. They're just not available to people that's inappropriate for them to be available to.
We can't even get, talking about the woke garbage in it, we can't even, in the state of Tennessee, we couldn't even get the pride flags banned.
Yeah.
Did you hear about that? Did you hear about that vote?
I did, yeah. I think my opponent was involved in that, or I guess I could say not involved in that. Right? I think he took a walk.
For whatever reason, he didn't vote.
Yeah,
I don't know, but the bill didn't pass because there weren't enough people. I don't remember the specifics, but he didn't support the bill to stop the flags, and I guess he was just not in there when they called the vote. I don't understand that, but whatever.
He took a walk, from my understanding. But that bill, my understanding of the bill was all it would do was say that the two acceptable flags in the classroom would be the American flag and the Tennessee flag.
Yeah, as it should be.
It didn't single out any other flag and say no, it said no other flag.
Right.
But apparently he decided not to vote on that, and the bill failed. So now we are open to have whatever flag in the classroom, I guess. And I don't, that's fine if you fly those flags and that's what you want to do in your home or in your personal area or in your car or whatever. That's entirely up to you, but that's not a classroom.
It's not something we should be pushing on our kids, for sure.
Classroom's not a place for that.
Before we finish up with what your other issues, I do want to say I got a call on this actually on the way here, talking to somebody about. So if you remember a couple of years ago, the guy's last name is Walsh. I cannot remember.
Matt Walsh.
Matt Walsh. You had the transgender surgery issue with Vanderbilt.
Right.
And he got involved and blew the whole thing. And I don't remember all the details. I'll tell you straight up, I do not remember all of the details. But I do know, the legislature addressed it fairly quick. However, it's my understanding, and we're going to get to the bottom of this. There's going to be more coming out about this, I'll tell you right now, that the legislation that enabled that situation, or at least partially enabled that, was legislation sponsored by Farrell Hale. Now, Farrell Hale is in Sumner County and in that area, and he has a good conservative opponent, Chris Spencer. Now, Farrell Hale, if you look up the definition of rhino in the dictionary, there's a picture of Farrell Hale. I mean, he's a rhino's rhino, okay? Now, I think it's coming up this week, or maybe it's next week, I'm not sure. I guess the race must be pretty tight because Lee and company are holding a fundraiser for Hale, who I know he's already got quite a bit of money from Big Pharma in the last few months. He's got good chunk of money.
Right.
And at this fundraiser, our senator's going to be there. Senator Stevens, he's supporting Hale. He is supporting, like I say, a rhino's rhino. That's who our senator is supporting, okay? And I understand her colleagues. I got it.
Yeah.
I don't think that means you have to support somebody who's that far down the road. But I'm hearing that on that legislation, and I'm trying to get fair, I'm hearing that Stevens was actually a co-sponsor of that legislation. So we'll find out more.
Yeah.
We'll get to the bottom of that and find out, true or not true, and all the particulars of the bill. But just keep your ears open for that.
Yeah, absolutely. That would be disturbing, to say the least, to find out that that's the case. But we'll see.
And we've got, like I say, this year, the worst of the worst senators are, they have opponents. Lundberg, Gardenhire has an opponent. Yeager has an opponent. Hale has an opponent. And I'm going to say our current senator has an opponent.
Right.
So people need to think about this. You know, we have a Republican supermajority who've had it for a long time. You really cannot go certainly not just by what they tell you.
Right.
Okay. Now, there's no Democrat in this race, right? There's no Democrat
there's not.
in November. So whoever wins the primary is going to be the person. So, you know, this is an opportunity. You know, if you're in any of those other districts, this is an opportunity to send some people packing, because we really need help in our Senate. Our House it's not great, but we got a lot more good, solid conservatives in the House than we do in the Senate.
Right.
And so this is a year to really think about that. Something else too. Now, I remember when Bruce Griffey ran, and of course, one of the things he ran on was illegal immigration. And I remember people saying, well, what can we do about that? You know, and but Bruce ran on that. And then Bruce really, while he was up there, tried to live up to what he said he wanted to do. And it didn't really have any success because the establishment didn't want that. And of course, now things are even worse with Biden in office. And, you know, he opened the floodgates. And of course, our state with the Chamber of Commerce, you know, they love that cheap labor.
Yeah.
Now, there was some good news. And I don't agree with all of this person's votes. But kudos to Senator Kerry and for getting legislation through that repealed the 2022 professional license bill that gave professional licenses to illegal aliens in 2022. That was sponsored by Shane Reeves, and the House sponsor was Bill Freeman, who's a Democrat.
Right.
What was the first clue there was something wrong with that bill? Now, Senator Stevens voted for that bill in 2022.
Right.
And I don't know if you were there, but we had him, because we weren't in his district originally, okay? But now Stewart County is part of his district, Houston County, and of course Henry and Benton's always been in his district.
Right.
And so the first time he came, and that was one of the things we brought up. Now, he's a lawyer.
Yeah.
He said, well, he didn't realize that. He basically taken the word, I guess, of the chamber or whoever, or the I don't know if it was Shane Reeves that he was taking the word of, or if it was the chamber or whatever.
Right.
And so we got him to agree to repeal it. He said he would repeal it. Said he would run a bill to repeal it. Well, you know, I know that since you worked up there and since you follow this stuff, you know, you got to have a Senate and a House sponsor.
Right.
If you're serious about getting a bill sponsored, you don't submit a bill in the Senate and not have a House sponsor locked in.
Right.
So he did keep his word in terms of he did file a bill to repeal it. Okay, he did do that, but he didn't have a House sponsor. So you have to kind of wonder how serious. But kudos to Kerry Roberts, because Kerry Roberts did work on a bill and get a bill through that repealed that law that gave professional licenses to illegal aliens. Yeah. So that's a good thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
So what are there some other thoughts you have about how Tennessee can be a little less illegal alien friendly?
Yeah. I think you take away the opportunities in a place that's gonna be one thing that keeps illegal aliens and has them go somewhere else. Of course, now we have the federal government shipping them into our state, but you have to question whether it would stay here if you make it less hospitable for them. I mean, I don't want to mistreat anybody. I want to see everybody, get fed and get taken care of and everything else. But, if you give people free money, you give people jobs, you give out a lot of free benefits and make it an easy climate for somebody to thrive here when they're here illegally, that just kind of invites them to stay or invites them to come. And like I said, with the federal government bringing them in anyway, it's, they're already going to be here, but, we want them to say, hey, let's look for a path of least resistance. If we're going to be in the United States, let's find somewhere else. But I think that's one way, just making it as, make the job climate, make the benefits, all that stuff, disappear for people who aren't American citizens. And that goes back to the whole America First idea that I have, I'm not against anybody. I lived on the Mexican border for 7 years, probably a mile from the border. Had a lot of good friends that were from Mexico. Went over there a lot myself, and just great people. But at the same time, there's laws for a reason that we have to have a sovereignty of our border, and I welcome people to come in legally, and do the right thing. And if you want to become an American citizen, go through the process. And otherwise we have to control our border, and it's not just the flood of illegal aliens coming in and the benefits and the money that it cost us and the crime and other things that might come up. It's it's the fact that embedded within those groups of people can be anybody. There may be and I'm sure there are. There's probably terrorists in there from other countries. There's, Chinese commandos that are waiting to spring on us one day. Who knows? Who's coming across our border when you have that kind of porous border, and then have a federal government that picks them up at the border, processes them, and puts them on a bus or a plane and flies them into the interior of the United States and lets them go. I mean,
and those federal agents are not protecting us from them.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly, and the Border Patrol does a tough job, and it's made even tougher by the Biden administration. Obviously, when President Trump was in there, I'm sure their job was a lot easier because they actually could do their job, and I think they respect him for that, and that's why the Border Patrol, if you talk to a lot of the agents, you'll find they overwhelmingly, like the policies of Donald Trump far better than they do the policies of Joe Biden. I think they've been robbed of their authority and robbed of their ability to do their job.
But in the meantime, here we have our states constantly filing suits, the AG and the governor filing suits against the Biden administration for a lot of this stuff with the elite, which they should. But up until this law was repealed a couple weeks ago that Senator Kerry sponsored, I don't remember who the House sponsor was. No, I'm not sure. Anyway, bottom line is, until then, here we are suing the federal government, yet at the same time, we're rewarding illegal aliens in the state of Tennessee with professional license.
Right.
And here's the thing too, a lot of them, not all of them, okay, because really this law was in 22. Now think about that. It had already been deemed as unconstitutional. The DACA, because they were talking DACA. DACA had already been deemed. Now they talked DACA when they were passing this bill, but it would apply to all the people that Biden's given parole, okay? So at a time when the border was already out of control, the administration was already leading the federal invasion, we have senators and representatives in our state voting to give illegal aliens DACA, okay, but not just DACA, professional license. And here's the thing. Anybody who's followed anything that has half a brain for the last 8 or 10 years, going back to the Obama administration, they know that DACA was a creation of Obama.
Executive order, I believe, wasn't it?
And so how any rep, any senator in this state could vote for that, especially a lawyer, that really, that blows my mind. I'm like, how could you think that was right?
Right.
So those are concerns, and I think we have to do more things to make our state unwelcoming to illegal aliens. And if you're elected, I hope that's something that you'll be willing to do.
Absolutely. Yeah. To me, it's like I said, it's not only a threat to our economy, a threat to our citizens as far as the criminal element that may be coming over, but it's a threat. Biggest thing, threat to national security. You got an open border that's just insane. It's insane that anybody would think there's anything right about having an open border, especially in a time where which United States has been hated around the world for a long time because like I said, we're a beacon of freedom. There's a lot of bad actors around the world that hate us, and having an open border is definitely not one of the components you want to have in your setup when you're facing that kind of thing. So that concerns me, and it concerned me when I lived right near the Mexican border. I knew that I knew there were cases even back then, and it's been several years ago that they found people's IDs and things, or letters written in Arabic and things in the desert. Near my house.
Islamist terrorists, no doubt. I'm sure we've got
maybe
we've got all kinds of them.
Maybe
over
it's
here.
just well-meaning, good people who speak Arabic, but who knows? That makes you wonder.
I think we covered most of your issues. Was there anything else that you wanted to hit on?
I can't think of anything. I think we covered everything. I just appreciate everybody's vote and support. August 1st is the election and Republican primary. Early voting starts July 12th and goes through July 27th. Then election day is August 1st, but sure would appreciate everybody's consideration.
Well, hey, I thank you for coming on. I thank you for your past service. You know, I can say this much. I've known you long enough to know that you're honest. Okay.
Appreciate that.
And I do appreciate what you do, and good luck to you. And we'll have you back on.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate that.
I want to thank you all. I want to thank you all for taking the time to watch the program tonight. Please hit the like and subscribe button, as well as notification bell, so that you keep up with what's coming up in the future. The TI is also available to listen to as an audio podcast on iHeartRadio, Spotify, Spreaker, and other popular podcast platforms. You can find links to all of them on our website, tninformer.com. While you're there, take a moment to sign up for our weekly newsletter to stay up to date on upcoming shows and important information. Please follow us on Facebook and Twitter. Just search for our username at TNInformer and share us with your friends as well. Next Monday night, our guest will be Tina Hedrick, State Senate candidate challenging establishment incumbent Ken Yeager. That's in Senate District 12. On Tuesday, our guest will be Kathy Harms, here to discuss election integrity in Tennessee. Now, until the primary is over, we will probably have at least 2 shows a week. We'll have a show on Monday and a show on Tuesday. Matter of fact, in the not too distant future, we're going to have a Wednesday show during the day. That will be a special. I'll tell you more about that as we get closer to it. Okay, so I hope you'll join us next week. Thank you again. Good night from Paris, Tennessee, that is.